Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast. Really excited about today's episode. Even though the Chargers were on bye, we got lots to talk about today. Joining me, as always, are my guys Tyler and Alex. Alex, we'll start with you, man. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Eagles tank is in full command. We have 11 picks now, 3 in the top 10 probably. So, we're doing good. So that was how my bye week went. And so I'm happy to get back into it with the Chargers because I'm sure it'll be a fun ride towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and the Jets have taken the Joe Flacco hype train off of the Eagles' hands, and
they got more for Joe Flacco than the Rams did for Kenny Young. It's hilarious.
The NFL trade market is a wild thing for sure. Tyler, you're here as well, man. Raining, pouring, till let's go snoring. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. The Chargers are finally playing this week. It feels like it's been forever. I feel like we've done 10 episodes, but they're finally going to play. Alex, is the last time a team had 3 picks in the first round, was that the Raiders?
I don't remember. I
want to say
idea.
yes.
I hope it turns out better then.
What did the Raiders take with the first 3 picks? I don't remember that.
I think it was Farrell, Jacobs,
Farrell.
and a corner.
Well, I mean, their coach was also a moron, so...
Well, isn't the Eagles coach also a moron?
Yeah, but he doesn't have 100% of football operations, and let's go. Let's slow the roll with what Gruden has been in the last 2 weeks. So
right, absolutely. So we wanted today to talk about the AFC West, or the AFC West. The whole AFC obviously has been shaken up. We had a great week 7, sitting here and relaxing, but have to start with the news from today. I was not expecting a press conference today or anything, but the Chargers were very gracious with their time, and it looks like right now that Drew Tranquill and Nasir Adderley are going to be back, which their absence was not expected to be prolonged, but we might get Justin Jones back this week for the Patriots game, and we've talked about this run defense quite a bit. And Tyler, what is your kind of general reaction about potentially having Justin Jones back this week?
Oh, thank God. I can't stand watching this run defense. I really hope he returns, even in some capacity, if nothing else, to at least get a true sort of rotation going. Maybe Covington's a little bit more fresh and kind of flashing like he did in week 1 when Jones played. Because the Patriots they had 200 total yards and 5 touchdowns with the running backs. Granted, it was against the Jets, but Harris is 8th in rushing yards and averages 4.6 yards per carry. And I am fairly certain they're going to try running the ball on Sunday, and they're going to need Justin Jones. So I hope he's there in some capacity, or at least in a little capacity, but then healthy enough to play moving forward. They have not activated him yet, but I hope that he is trending towards playing on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it's a very good sign that he was back at practice today and the first day. And, this wasn't like a waited out till Thursday or Friday situation to see if maybe he would play, maybe he wouldn't. It's good that he's back in the building pretty much to start on Monday. So that's very good. I mean, they need him if they're going to beat the Patriots because their run defense against what that Patriots run game is not going to be pretty if he's not playing. That's just the reality of it. But Drew Tranquill and Nasir Adderley being back is great as well. Need linebacker depth as much as possible, and Drew Tranquill, when he was the starting linebacker, was really good at doing it. So I'm hopeful that we get that Tranquill White pairing this week as well, even if Murray isn't quite back yet. So that's going to be really important to watch.
Yeah, so Murray was practicing off to the side. Essentially, he'd be a limited participant. They didn't say if he would have been designated to return from injured reserve. So my guess is that he will not be playing this week. Obviously, it's early and that can change. But it does seem like Justin Jones is on track, which has been, arguably the missing piece of this defense. So NV Talent, I see your super chat question. We'll get to that in a second. About some trades, but I wanted to finish this up because Brandon Staley was asked about the run defense today, and he gave a really interesting answer as it relates to trades, as it relates to their team, as it relates to coaching. And so I wanted to read it here. He said, quote, "Our front mechanics and technique at the first level need to improve. Needs to improve is with me. I need to do a better job coaching because our players will play better if we define things better." We played 3 premium running teams that exposed those tough moments for us. So, like I said, you can look at me for why it didn't go well enough. We've made some good corrections over the last week or so, and I'm excited to get it going with our guys. So, I mean, first things first, I love that Brandon Staley is taking ownership for this. I think, we have all kind of dubbed him defensive genius and coaching genius and whatever the case may be. I love the fact that he's taking ownership for this. And I love the fact that he is saying that, like, hey, we need to do a better job coaching. That he's not, throwing anybody under the bus. So that is good. I know a lot of people, when they saw that I tweeted this, were like, oh, so they're not really trading it for anyone. I think that's possible too. I think really, I was talking with Craig on Twitter today. I think they're waiting to see what this run defense looks like with Justin Jones. And then if it still looks like shit, then maybe they trade for somebody else after that. So I'm not like making any general, roster construction takeaways from that statement yet. Only focusing on Brandon Staley taking ownership for that fact. And I think that is the right thing to say in that situation.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. I mean, quite frankly, whether or not they say anything, because Telesco works in silence. I mean, it doesn't matter what Staley says in regards to a trade. And I think they can make a trade at any time. I don't really think it's about how Justin Jones plays, because they know that he's going to be better. But, it's not enough to solve the run defense, at least immediately, because he's probably going to be in a somewhat limited capacity this week, like Steven mentioned earlier. So to me, I don't think that should prevent a trade for Akeem Hicks if that's what they want to do, or a trade for somebody else. But we'll see what that pans into later. But I thought it was a very diplomatic answer in general, because it was like, well, yeah, I mean, I could be doing better, but at what point is this really about coaching? To me, the issue is more that they don't have the personnel right now when it comes to stopping people in the run game with Jerry Tillery. And some of the others, Tyler brings up the stats about Jerry Tillery in the run pass game, and all the pressure he's not getting, even when Joey Bosa is double and triple teamed. He's been a problem in the run game too. Linval's been pretty decent in the run game, but you've had kind of mild performances from Christian Covington and others. So to me, I think that you can do some things better coaching wise, but to me, the unit is the unit, and the guys are the guys that they have right now. So to me, I thought it was a very diplomatic, coaching, oh, I'll take ownership of this. But I mean, I'm really not sure what Brandon Staley can do about this other than hope Justin Jones comes back, or, obviously hope for a trade or something along those lines. Because to me, it is still a personnel issue at the end of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, it's very nice of him to not throw anyone under the bus other than himself. I like that he's taking ownership, sure, whatever. But if you asked me before the season which position group was probably coached the best or had the best position group coaches, probably would have said defensive line. You have a combination of Staley, Gift Smith, and Jay Rogers. I know Rogers is outside linebackers, but he is the run game coordinator on defense. So
they're all involved.
Yeah, they're all involved. And I would have expected them to be the best coach. So for them to say, oh, we're just not teaching it right, I don't know if I really buy that, because I do think this coaching staff can maximize this group. And I think this is just kind of the best that they're going to get. And I hope that they're not waiting. Do I think Justin Jones makes the run defense better? Sure. But I hope they're not waiting for him. I hope they're not waiting for the results of the next few weeks to be like, oh, okay, we're looking better, so we don't have to trade for a guy. Because that's great, but they're falling into a trap, because the run defense is going to get better. It's just certain laws of averages. Like they said, they played 3 premium teams who are good with the run game, and it looked bad. But hoping it gets better. And so they're going to play, the Eagles, Patriots, who I think are good at it. But some other teams they aren't the Broncos. Excuse me, they aren't the Browns, the Ravens, or the Cowboys. So just naturally, it's going to get better. So if they look at that and go, "Oh, we got better, great," they will get better. But then the postseason rolls around, and you have to play the Ravens, the Browns again. Maybe in the Super Bowl, the Titans. God, maybe in the Super Bowl you're playing the Cowboys. So I hope that they don't look at the results of the next few weeks and go, "Oh, I think we've got this. We're going to make it," because I think they can make the postseason regardless of the run defense. It's just, what can you do in the postseason? So I really hope they don't trap themselves and just say, "Hey, we got better. Let's roll with what we got." No, you need to know that you're going to face those really good teams again. And I don't think one guy's going to change that.
Yeah, we're all big fans of Justin Jones. I thought, and I think we're all in agreement that he was one of the 3 or 4 best players against the Washington football team, at least in the first half when he was on the field. So,
Mhm.
trusting the extent of this run defense or the potential success on Justin Jones's return, that's a risky move. Like, that is a trap because you're banking on a player who, when healthy, has been very, very good, but he has struggled to stay healthy throughout his career. So, like, what happens if Justin Jones comes back, plays like the next 4 or 5 games at a really high level, and he gets injured? What happens if Linval Joseph gets injured? What happens if Joey Bosa gets injured? Like, these are all questions that you're talking about the depth of the defensive line, and you're like, you need some other dudes. And I think, Christian Covington is a fine role player. I think Forrest Merrill, Braden Fajoko, like, they're fine role players, but you need a difference maker in the middle, and they don't really have that. Maybe that's Justin Jones when he comes back. Maybe he stays healthy. I don't know. But right now, they don't have that difference maker. And I think, if we want to pivot to some trade talk right now, I think if you do that trade for Akeem Hicks, I think that makes a ton of sense. I think that despite his age and despite his current status of being a little banged up, I think he is a difference maker. I posted today that he had more pressures and run stops than Jerry Tillery and Justin Jones had in 2020 combined. So I think you trade for Akeem Hicks. It only costs you $5 million to do that. You still have a good amount of cap space that you can roll over, and you go from there. So I know everybody is like, Tom Telesco doesn't make trades. We're still going to talk about it because I think trading for Akeem Hicks solves a lot of their issues. It helps Joey Bosa get, more one-on-ones. It helps the run defense. To me, it just makes so much sense. And there's all the coaching connections, and the Bears are a team that's going down the drain. So to me, when you're looking at like the checklist of potential trades, Akeem Hicks checks every single box, in my opinion.
I think he checks every single box except the fact that the Bears are fighting for their jobs with Nagy and Pace. So I don't think that they're trading Akeem Hicks. Like, I mean, it's a fun thing to think about, and I hope it happens,
Sure.
And I would hope the Chargers would be a team, but they need him this year because, great, you traded him for a 5th-round pick. Oh, and you're fired, and you don't get to use that pick. Like, so to me, like, as much as I would like it to happen, I don't think it's a really realistic solution at this point, unless, they're guaranteed job security and then the Bears really do go all in on a Fields kind of style tank.
Yeah, I guess you could spin that and say, well, we're trading Hicks and a few guys because we're preparing to build around Justin Fields. So we know the picks we can to get receivers and linemen and yada, yada, whatever. But yeah, I would love for Hicks to be available. I would like them for at least to try and just try this one. It's so low cost. There's really low risk. If it doesn't work out, you move on. It's not that bad. It's not a long-term thing. I'd love for them just to try it. Give it a shot. I even like that they brought in, like, back in the day, Cardale Jones, Easton Stick, Geno Smith. They were kind of working through quarterbacks to figure out what they wanted. And lo and behold, their target all this time was Justin Herbert. Now, granted, those guys aren't at all like Justin Herbert, but I think you get some mobility. You kind of figure out what works for you. And I think getting someone like Hicks, like, hey, let's try this rotation. Let's try different players. Let's find, I don't know, high talent, defensive tackles rather than what they currently have. Some guys that are just better. Maybe that'll just kind of give them a little like, hey, I like this. This works for our team. Moving forward, maybe we'll prioritize this. I don't know. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I really think based on the comments that nothing is happening. I think they are stuck with what they got. Arjun, I saw you mention whether they have to make a decision on Fajoko this week. He is back. I don't know how that works out between Merrill and Fajoko. I don't know how that works, but we'll see. But I do know Fajoko is back.
Yeah, and so that is, I don't know. Like, I think there are rotational things and schematic things that this team can do to kind of mitigate some risk there. The way that they're playing Jerry Tillery right now is so confusing to me. He plays more snaps per game than Joey Bosa, which just like is mind-boggling. But
Really,
really, he's on the field for like 90% of snaps every single game. He never comes off the field. So
the way that they're playing Jerry Tillery is mind-boggling because he's bad. That's the only reason it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a big swing and a miss for me. But getting back to the Bears, like, I don't know if you guys saw this. They, after being blown up by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have a worse point differential than the Jacksonville Jaguars.
oh,
Ooh. I wanted to note one funny thing from that game. I don't know if anyone else was watching when Brady threw the 600 TD pass on CBS, and so Romo and Nance are there. And so Nance is like, oh man, the fans got to give the ball back. And then like frat boy Romo was just like, oh, if I was the fan, I would offer the ball back for a date with Giselle. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're married and have kids. Like, it's just so weird. I was just laughing for how abrupt it was, but
it's like when
I'm surprised you got away with that.
Yeah. It's like when Mark Jackson was talking about LeBron's wife that one time.
Yeah. It was so weird. It was funny
though. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what the Bears do. I think there are lots of teams this week that are like right on the borderline of potentially becoming sellers. Like we're hearing from several people that the Miami Dolphins are like a dumpster fire and that it's a huge mess there after winning 10 games last year.
Thanks for the pick though.
Yeah. Shout out to the Eagles there, but it's going to be interesting. I don't think that there's going to be any major trades this week outside of Joe Flacco. The big trades, if any, will be happening next week after these teams figure out, how bad they are or not. So the Bears right now are that team, like they're teetering on potentially getting a 7th seed again because the NFC is either you're great or you're awful. So, the Bears have a legitimate chance of making the playoffs if they can figure out how to score some points for once. But if they lose this week to the Niners, then they're probably closer to a top 10 pick. So those are all those kind of issues. I wanted to get now to Envy Talent's question. Again, he's been so great and supportive to our show. So shout out to him.
Yes, thank you.
He wants to know between OJ Howard, Brandon Cooks, Andre Dillard, Ryan Kerrigan, who would we take? And that's assuming trade. So, you can take into potential contracts or whatever the case may be there. Tyler, of these 4 choices, who would you pick to add to the Chargers?
Okay, not OJ Howard. I think Kerrigan is out for me. So it's between Cooks and Andre Dillard here. And if he plays right tackle and plays it well, I'm going with the guy who plays right tackle. Like that to me is the biggest need. Yeah. I obviously want the Chargers to be more dynamic especially on first down, especially because they've not completed many deep passes on first down, at least the last 3 weeks. But like Dillard versus Norton, I'm going to go with Dillard here. So it's kind of easy, even though Cooks is definitely interesting, and it probably costs you less to get Cooks. But I'd still go with the offensive lineman here.
Yeah, I mean, it's Andre Dillard by a mile. Like Brandon Cooks, I mean, he has like $15 million cap hit next year. I'm not taking that. Ryan Kerrigan is basically just another Kyler Fackrell. And OJ Howard.
Is he even playing for the Eagles this year?
Yeah, he plays, but I mean,
he's on the Eagles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's on the Eagles now. I mean, he's basically just Kyler Fackrell. And so OJ Howard is, I mean, they already have plenty of tight ends. They don't need any more. Trey McKitty can't even play on the anyway. So, it's Andre Dillard. And if that can potentially solve the tackle problem, then, you take that chance if the Eagles are really willing to deal him. Don't think they would do it, but definitely Dillard out of that group.
Yeah, absolutely on the same page. Of course, I'm the offensive line guy, so I got to say Dillard here. But it does, it makes a lot of sense from a long-term perspective, right? Like, I think in terms of the long-term future at right tackle, I think drafting one with your first-round pick next year is probably the best option. And trading for a guy like Dillard is probably a pretty close second because he is a former first-round pick. There's still a lot of untapped potential there. I know he was basically hurt his whole rookie season, but I think he's shown in the NFL in his limited time he can play left tackle, right tackle, can play it pretty well. He's athletic. He can move. He still has next year and then the 5th-year option after that, right, Alex?
I believe so, free agent 2024.
Yeah, so there's a lot of long-term flexibility in trading for a guy like Andre Dillard. Wanted to mention, too, I saw on Pro Football Focus today that they think that a trade for Akeem Hicks would only cost a 5th-round pick at most. And a trade for Andre Dillard, according to Ian Rappaport, is a day 2 pick. So I would imagine that maybe you do like a 3rd and like a 6th or something like that would get it done for Andre Dillard at this point because they have so much money tied into I forget his first name. He's playing left tackle. Jordan Mailata, right?
Mailata.
Yeah.
Rugby
and
guy.
And then Lane Johnson at right tackle. So those are some interesting ones. Any other guys that you have looked into for potential trades, you two?
I would go with Melvin Ingram. I think it makes a lot of sense if the Steelers are willing to deal him. He's on a minimum contract. You get him for the rest of the year, and probably doesn't cost you more than seventh, conditional sixth. I can't imagine it would be more expensive than that. They have 4 6-round picks to work with this year, and he has a pretty high grade against the run game this year. He has a 68.2 on PFF. And has been a good contributor for the Steelers, all things considered. Has pretty much played in every game, and so he's looking better than he was last year. Obviously, that is just, kind of just a health thing. There wasn't really a decline last year. It was just he was battling those injuries. Seems to be healthier this year. I would take a chance on it just because I do think, if you do have Melvin Ingram at peak health, I do think he's better than Nwosu or Fackrell still at this point. So I think you can at least get him to be a contributor on the edge opposite Joey Bosa. So I would take a chance on that.
Man, do you think they do that though? Like that's a lot of.
Oh, they wouldn't do it. They
They
wouldn't do it because pride to swallow and whatever. But yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like he's just better than Fackrell or Nwosu. Like if he's healthy and he can stop the run, like that's what they need on the edge right now. So I don't think they're going to do it. But if the Steelers say, "Hey, we're willing to trade him," like he's making what $2 on his contract, like just do it.
Yeah, no, that would be fun. Craig points out my guy, who I really wanted in the draft. Of course, they went in a different direction, and Wilkins wasn't even there. But yeah, Christian Wilkins would be amazing. I thought he was a really good talent coming out of college. Have not tracked how he's been, but I'm sure he's been better than what the Chargers have.
He's been very good.
Yeah, so he's been very good, and of course, because he was pretty solid coming out of college. Even though the Raiders went with Cleveland Farrell instead, they could have gone anywhere else, and they went with Farrell in that draft. But so I'd go with him because I think that team is like the Dolphins are a lost cause. People that watch film seem to think that Tua is actually a lot better than people think. So I'll lean towards like their expertise in that regard. But otherwise, that team is kind of a dumpster fire. And I mean, right now, Jalen Waddle's averaging 8.7 yards per catch, and Keenan Allen's like 11.2 or something like that. I mean, if Jalen Waddle's averaging 8.7 yards per catch, that pretty much sums up how bad your organization is. I don't understand how you could possibly get someone like Waddle, and after 44 catches, he's at 8.7 yards per catch. You're doing something completely wrong.
Yeah, and everybody talks about like the trading for Waddle thing, and that's definitely bad. But that offensive line has been a mess. They've had 5 different starting combinations in 7 games. Austin Jackson has given up the most pressures in the league of any position. They drafted Solomon Kingley out of Georgia last year in the 3rd round. He's not even playing. He hasn't participated in any of those 5 different combinations. So they have a lot of roster construction issues beyond Tua. Like, they're considering trading for Deshaun Watson, which is a different mess. But, that roster is not very good outside of like the corners and the receivers, I guess. But then you're totally using Jalen Waddle the wrong way. So it's a mess. Craig mentions Andy Isabella, which I think is a super interesting one because he's never really been used in Arizona. He is a burner, like Craig is saying here. He is everything that we all think Jalen Guyton is. So Andy Isabella would be an interesting reclamation project. I think he has this year and next year left on his rookie deal, if I'm not mistaken, because he was like a 2nd round pick. So that would be an interesting reclamation project. I know a lot of people have talked about Brandon Cooks as well. One of the ones that I wanted to mention here is Austin Johnson out of the New York Giants. He's a defensive tackle and really is flying under the radar. He actually is tied with Christian Wilkins for 2nd most run stops in the league. And Austin Johnson is making $3 million to do that. He's a former 2nd round pick by the Tennessee Titans and has not really panned out, but he's having a career season in New York, and the Giants have $400,000 in cap space next year. They cannot afford to bring Austin Johnson back. So if it were me, I would definitely make a call there. I know that they're trying to kind of like figure out if they're going to be winning or not after beating the Carolina Panthers, but to me, that makes a lot of sense as well.
Can I nominate another name for the never gonna happen category?
Yeah, go for
Wait,
it.
hold on. What position is it?
Edge.
No, I got nothing.
Oh, Nick
Von Miller.
Von Miller. Okay.
So Von Miller, here's the thing. The Broncos would never trade him to the Chargers. And of course, character concerns, yada, yada. But think about it. He's going to be a free agent next year. He's 5 sacks, really productive this year, has a bunch of pressures. They need help stopping the run on the edge. It would make a lot of sense on paper.
Yeah.
And I mean, you probably don't have to trade that high of a pick for him because his contract's expiring. I don't know, maybe a 5th rounder, 4th. Like, so to me, I would kind of do it. I mean, I don't know if the Broncos are actually going to do it and go into sell mode, but it sounds like they're sort of starting to consider that. And I don't know. I sort of in the vein of the Melvin Ingram thing, I would kind of go after Von Miller. Obviously, he's a much more premium option at this point than someone like Melvin Ingram. But yeah, I think that one would make a lot of sense if the Broncos are actually willing to start selling.
Yeah, to me, if the Broncos are really interested in selling, I'm going after Shelby Harris. Shelby Harris would be more of my guy. I think he fits the need a little bit more. But listen, I'll never say no to Von Miller. So I mean, Alex, you've talked about a couple edge guys, and I know a lot of people are talking about the Dolphins. Would you consider Emmanuel Ogbah then?
Sure. I mean, anyone who can help you with the run on the edge, like it's any of them. I mean, to be honest, just the late round pick, contract expiring guy, like, I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
I have no idea what his stats are, so yeah, sure.
He's pretty good. He's a step up from Unwosun Fackrell. But yeah. All right, guys. Any other potential trade targets here? Craig poses an interesting question about the Niners defensive line or otherwise, because the Niners are obviously a mess right now too.
Who's still on the team? Because I know Buckner's gone, Thomas is gone.
Yeah.
So they're down to obviously Bosa.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same place. I watched the Colts-Niners games last night, and I don't remember a single person from the Niners defensive line. I mean, I'm sure they're good, but I don't
Sure.
remember them.
Excuse me. So they're getting that guy back from suspension today. I forget his name.
That guy, let's get him.
But I think one of their defensive tackles, DJ Jones, is interesting. He apparently gave Matt Filer a little bit of a problem in training camp. So that could be interesting. I mean, their secondary is a whole lot of nothing. So I think Craig is specifically talking about the defensive line. Maybe go for a D Ford. I don't know. That'd be an interesting potential target, I guess.
He mentioned Ayuk. If we're talking about offense, then that's interesting.
Oh.
I believe he's been pretty underused. No,
he's in the doghouse right now. Whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan said that he had his best week of practice last week. And then today he said that he needs to grind more. So I don't know what it is that Kyle Shanahan has.
Traded to Jacksonville. That joke was too easy.
Good job. But yeah, it's been super frustrating for my fantasy teams because I drafted him in all 3 of my leagues, but they don't like him. Like he was one of the better rookie receivers last year, and they're like, no, we're good. We just need Debo and no one else. Is
your fantasy team particularly frustrating this week, Steven?
Yeah, because I'm losing to the worst team in the league because all my guys are on bye. I had to start Brandon Ayuk this week because I had literally no other options.
Damn.
But yeah, that's an interesting team to keep an eye on too, because they're obviously, it's might be time to start talking about Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat. That is not a pretty situation.
How long until they stick Lance in there to save his job?
Apparently not for a while. Like Jimmy is their guy if he's healthy.
He had like a QBR of like 4 on Sunday. So,
Carson Wentz sucked yesterday, and he made Carson Wentz look like a god compared to him. I mean,
yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I like that comparison by Craig. Brandon Ayuk to Chris Chambers. I like that one. I'm trying to think. There was a couple other people. PFF talked about a guy named Nick Williams, who is a defensive tackle for the Lions. Played in Chicago with Akeem Hicks and Brandon Staley. had a career season with Brandon Staley when he was on that staff, and then he's not been playing great for the Lions. He's kind of a serviceable run defender, but so I'm not like super interested in that, but I wanted to bring that up since PFF put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody's kind of keeping an eye on the Houston Texans and who they're selling. Marcus Cannon is their swing tackle right now. I think he would be a very interesting pickup because he's better than Storm Norton at this point. So that could be someone that I'd be keeping an eye on, but not like super interested in that. But I just wanted to throw that out there too.
Great that we talked about all these trades that aren't going to happen.
We talked about Julio Jones for 2 straight weeks. So
that was fun. It got us some views, though.
Yeah. The Julio stuff was awesome, man. That was a great time. Quinnen Williams would be quite expensive. I think the Jets would be asking for at least a first-round pick for Quinnen. Like he's probably a top 5 defensive tackle right now. So I think Quinnen is kind of out of the question right now. But the Jets have other people, so I haven't looked too much into it. But the Jets are probably going to be sellers too because Zach Wilson is injured right now, and they're starting Joe Flacco this week after trading for him.
Jeez.
All right, guys. Any other thoughts in terms of potential trade targets here?
It won't happen. I like Travis Gibson from the Bears only because I've been hearing a lot from him or about him. He's behind Mack and Quinn, so he's their third pass rusher. And why would they get rid of a guy who's that inexpensive as their third pass rusher? I don't know. But if they're selling because they want to go with Mack and Quinn and find some other replacement in the draft because Gibson probably will run a pay raise, I'd go with that. He's an edge rusher, only 10 pressures so far, but only 72 pass rush snaps. His win rate is higher than Fackrell and Rumpf and Wosu. His productivity is higher than all those guys by quite a bit. So I would consider someone like him, especially because I don't think he has a connection to Staley, but I think Jay Rodgers might.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, because Jay was in Chicago last year, so he would. All right. We wanted today to talk about, wow, my sentence structure is awful today. We wanted to talk about the Week 7 AFC shakeup that happened yesterday. It's only right, of course, the Chargers are on bye week and all this crazy shit happened yesterday. So we wanted to talk about the Chiefs in specifics and how that kind of shakes up the AFC. This is an interesting one because I think this has been kind of, talked about by a lot of the national media, but this Chiefs team, I know we're all kind of on the same page in terms of expecting them to figure it out, but it's been 7 weeks now. Like that defense is not getting any better. Frank Clark and Chris Jones were seen in the fourth quarter kind of laughing on the sidelines and kind of moping around and not really giving any shits. And so it's an interesting question to see if the Chiefs are kind of done, or do we actually expect them to figure it out, or where do we see the Chiefs at? Tyler, I'll start with you on this one.
I don't think they're done in the sense like I don't think they're out of the postseason race by any means, and no one should count them out unless they're mathematically eliminated or Patrick Mahomes dies. So I think that they're going to make the postseason, and then at that point, because their interior offensive line plays really well, their tackles are okay, but they don't adjust very well to that deep passing game, or at least the big drops. But like they're going to be a good team in the end. I don't think they're the third best team in the AFC West by any means at this point, but they're still the Chiefs, and all they have to do is make the dance, and then at that point, they can take down really any team. Like if they play the Titans again in the playoffs, they could probably win, and it would probably be almost a completely different game.
Yeah.
So while I don't think they're the class of the AFC by any means, I am glad that their mistakes are finally catching up to them, because I feel like I've been crazy for years. Like, this defense isn't good. This defense isn't good. I know it's not good. It was never good, but they were so good at taking the ball away. And then, of course, you give Mahomes one more, series, he's going to score, and they win every time, especially against the Chargers. It was the same thing. Chiefs defense wasn't good, but they give the ball away. The Chiefs would win. So now I'm really glad it's catching up to them. They are in a pickle for sure moving forward, though. There's not really a lot of there's talent, there's high end talent, and there's like crap after that. There just really isn't like another kind of guy in there. Like there's no like Uchenna Nwosu, for example. He's not a star by any means, but I think there's no like other edge rusher who's like that. There's not really like another mid-tier solid guy. They don't have a lot of guys like that on their roster. And the Chargers were really, really close to having the same kind of draft, the poor drafts the Chiefs have had. Because they've had, I think you pointed out, they had maybe 1.5 to 2 hits the last 3 or 4 drafts. I mean, it's you look at that list and it's like who. And granted, I'm sure Chiefs fans know who they are. Like we know who, Nick Neiman is, and I would have no idea who their 6th round pick is. Maybe they're a contributor, I don't know. But looking at that list, it's really rough. So while I do think they'll figure it out this year, they have a lot of questions moving forward for sure. And I don't think that they are the class of the AFC for sure. Not even the class of the AFC West right now.
Yeah, I don't know. So I was always on the bandwagon of like, oh, they'll figure it out and it's Mahomes and all that. I think I'm slowly coming off of it because to be honest, they have some really hard games left. They have the second hardest strength of schedule left in the league. They have a stretch that is Packers, Raiders, Cowboys, Broncos at Mile High, then the Raiders again, Chargers, Steelers in Pittsburgh, the Bengals, and then they wrap it up with the Broncos. So they have a really tough schedule, and it's like not that hard to see them having at the very least the 4 losses they have now, maybe 3 or 4 losses in that stretch. Obviously, they could always turn it up because they're the Chiefs, but if you're finishing with 7 or 8 losses, you're probably a wild card team, or maybe fighting for that last wild card spot. So I don't know. I'm not out on the Chiefs. They have Mahomes, and that will always be a great thing for them. But the problem is that right now Mahomes is averaging an interception a game in his last 16 games, right? So he's turning the ball over, unfortunately, for them, partially because of their miscommunication on offense and stuff. But it's always been, hey, they're going to get bailed out because of Mahomes and all that. But right now, that's just not the case, right? So on paper, even though they were the worst team in the Super Bowl, I would take the Chiefs over the Bucs last year or pick them because they have Mahomes and the other team doesn't. Right. But I think that that's just starting to kind of run out because of how noticeably bad the defense is and how much the offense is struggling right now, particularly with turnovers. So I'm not out on the Chiefs. They'll always be the Chiefs on some level because they have Mahomes and Andy Reid and Tyreek Hill and all that. But yeah, I don't know. I think they'll maybe make it in, but I'm kind of throwing them out of the AFC West contention as far as it is now, just because of how hard the remaining schedule is.
Yeah, it's a really tough schedule. They play the Giants on Monday Night Football this week, which who the hell scheduled that one? But like Alex mentioned, that's a really difficult schedule, and I think I'm kind of on the same page where it's I'm not counting them out yet. Mahomes is too good, Andy Reid is too smart. I still think that they'll get into the playoffs or potentially be close. There was a lot of people saying yesterday, the Chiefs are going to be out, the Chiefs are not going to make the playoffs. And it's well, the AFC is still really up for grabs. Outside of the Bills getting the 1 seed, I think 2 through 7 is really up for grabs and can go really any other way. So it's just I will never count them out, right? Because that they just have that kind of talent. But to get back to Tyler's point, you look at the drafts that they have had since they took Patrick Mahomes, and it's not pretty. In the 2018 draft, they took a defensive end in the 2nd round who's not even on the team. They took Derek Nandi, who's a solid run stuffing defensive tackle. 3rd round pick's not on the team. 4th round pick is is behind Daniel Sorensen. That's how bad he is. Receiver not on the team. Defensive tackle not on the team. And that's every single year. Mecole Hardman and Juan Thornhill are okay. Hardly, difference makers. I think L'Jarius Sneed is really, really good. And Creed Humphrey is really, really good. But those are their only 2 hits. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is talented, but he's not panned out and not, proven worthy of being a 1st round pick. TBD on Trey Smith, who I think will eventually become a hit for them because I think he's really solid, but he's been some, a little up and down. So they've got some major roster concerns too. And it's a lot of confusing swings and misses. Frank Clark, I think he's the 58th or 59th highest pass rush win rate edge rusher on PFF right now. And it's not, and he's the most expensive defensive player in the league this year. So they have to figure out how to get even average on defense and Mahomes has to figure out how to stop turning the ball over. If Mahomes stops turning the ball over, then they'll be okay this year. But defensively, like they need to have a massive overhaul on that side of the ball.
Yeah, their defense is so bad. I forget if they've updated it for this week, but their defense on like the EPA graph, like offense versus defense, it's put their logo like on the they had to find like a new quadrant to put the defense because it was so bad. It is historically really bad, it looks like.
Yeah. So on the opposite side of the Chiefs, obviously, is the Titans, who, after losing to the Jets, have beaten the Bills and the Chiefs in back-to-back weeks because football sometimes makes no sense, and it is what it is. Like Derrick Henry didn't even have a very good game yesterday, and they destroyed the Chiefs. So I think all three of us picked the Titans to win that division. Am I correct?
Yes,
pretty sure.
So I like my expectations for them have not changed. They'll be in the playoffs. I know a lot of people are like talking about them as Super Bowl contenders today. Alex, where are you at with the Tennessee Titans these days?
I think they're Super Bowl contenders, but in the sense that I think everybody in the AFC is kind of a Super Bowl contender right now, right? Like, I mean, you have, you just talked about like the Bills wrapping up the 1 seed. The 1 seed belongs to the Bengals right now. Like, as much as we want to talk about that, like that, and they dominated the Ravens, right? So to me, you just look at pretty much all of these teams that are sort of log jammed in there, and over the course of the season, I'm sure they'll separate themselves out and all that. But to me, it's wide open. And, if you have Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill's playing good, that's always a formula that can win you games. Their defense is starting to play a little bit better than it had been previously. So, yeah, and like just the physicality that they can provide on offense because they have Julio Jones, Derrick Henry, and AJ Brown, who I'm pretty sure all average like 250 pounds. They're just throwing at you every single play, right? So, to me, I don't see a reason that they can't win the AFC. Just like I don't see a reason that the Bills or the Chargers or, some of these other teams that we're always talking about can't win too, because it's really wide open in some of these divisions.
Yeah, their schedule isn't even all that bad. They have the Rams coming up, not this week, but the following week. But then it's like, I don't know what to make of the Saints. They get to play the Texans 2 more times. They get to play the Jaguars, the Patriots, the Steelers, the Niners, who don't look good at all, the Dolphins, who are in disarray. Their strength of schedule is pretty easy. So as long as if they can win against the Rams and they get the Rams at home, they have a legit shot. Like them and the Bills have a really, really easy schedule to finish out the year. And the way they're playing, and the way that Derrick Henry's playing like a true MVP candidate, even though he won't win it, he's playing his ass off. He didn't have to do much against the Chiefs, but the weeks prior, oh my God, they can't stop this guy. And so, yeah, I would love to see the Chargers make that push for the number 1 seed, but the schedule is just so easy. Texans twice, Jaguars, 49ers, Dolphins, like that's kind of cake. Whereas the Chargers at least still have to go through the rest of the AFC West and a couple of other good teams. So, I think they're a pretty solid team, but I think I want to see them beat at least the Colts or Rams the next 2 weeks before I really think they can be a Super Bowl contender. I know that the Colts aren't like that great of a team, but like I just want to see them get like one more win, string it together, and show that these 2 wins were, kind of the norm rather than what happened against the Jets where they lost.
Yeah, well, and even the matchup with the Colts, like that's a divisional game. The Colts, the best thing about the Colts is that front 7 with DeForest Buckner and Darius Leonard. So, that's a game where I think if Derrick Henry plays, as good as he has been, then the MVP talk will kind of, ratchet up a little bit. Have you guys seen how many carries that man is on pace for?
No.
Got to be over 300.
So the previous record was some guy in like the 90s. I want to say it was like 391 or something like that. And 17 games, of course, but Derrick Henry right now is on pace for over 425 carries.
Dang.
And like that's so crazy to me. Like picturing a 400 carry running back, it's insane. So Alex mentioned the Bengals, which was kind of the other big result from yesterday. And everybody on Twitter was like, "Oh, I can't believe the Chargers lost to this Ravens team." It's like, well, 2 different games, divisional matchups, you never really know. But I think there is legitimate questions if the Bengals are for real, if the Ravens are also for real after this point. I think when I look at the Bengals at this point, they're kind of like that big play waiting to happen team with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all these guys, but they're not super efficient on offense yet to this point. So I keep on waiting for the Bengals to you know, throw out a stinker game and lose to a team that they shouldn't, and be the team that I thought they would be heading into the season, which was kind of like a 7-8 win team. But they're playing great, man, and Jamar Chase has proven to be a worthwhile pick in the top 5. He's been awesome. I think he's like second in the league right now in receiving yards. Like I said, big play waiting to happen. That touchdown he had yesterday was crazy. Broke like 4 tackles. So I think the Bengals are. I still think they're like borderline contenders. I'm not ready to make that full leap yet. I still kind of expect the Ravens to win that division, but the Bengals are definitely much better than I thought they were. And it was a very impressive win yesterday. What about you guys?
Oh my God. Did we just get Steven saying Jamar Chase was a worthwhile pick on the show on recorded audio? That's amazing. But anyway.
I did not say he was the right pick. I said he was a worthwhile pick.
Oh, here we go.
Listen,
no.
Penasul is still going to be a great player, man. Like, I don't think that's a situation where you can choose wrong, but Jamar Chase has been great so far.
You were alleging that they chose wrong back in April. But anyway, no, I think that the Bengals look, I think the thing with the Bengals is you look at the Ravens and Browns, and they're both really injured right now, particularly the Browns dealing with what Baker's going through and what a lot of people in their team are going through. So to me, I would just kind of think that I'm not going to say the Bengals are like the favorite in the division. I think that you might have them with co-favorites with the Ravens and sort of how that's going to play out. But to me, they're the healthiest team, and they have like the hardest thing to stop on offense right now with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So to me, I would not necessarily put them in the driver's seat for the AFC like they currently are. But I mean, at some point, the Browns and the Steelers don't look very good. And the Ravens are injured, right? So to me, at this point, I kind of shifted over to the Bengals. And they're a team that probably should be 6-1 right now because they lost that game where Evan McPherson missed like 3 kicks against the Packers in that, incredible, incredibly bad overtime. So to me, like, I'm not going to go as far as to call them a legit team, but they're a problem on offense and they're good enough on defense, to win most weeks. And the other teams in their division are either injured or have poor quarterback play right now when you talk about Baker and Ben. So yeah, no, I would put the Bengals as pretty legit given the circumstances. Obviously things could change and certain elements of their team could regress, but I think you got to give them the respect for what they've done to this point in the season.
Yeah, the Bengals are a much better team than I would have guessed. And they've certainly shifted my thinking because I was kind of there with Steven on, taking an elite receiver over an elite tackle prospect. I still I personally would still take the lineman, but they've definitely shifted my way of thinking, I guess. But it's certainly transformed their offensive potential. But their defense is so much more solid than I would have guessed. I never really we saw hints of it. We knew that there's some good safeties, some good front line talent. It's not Jeff Wilson. Logan Wilson? That's the linebacker's name. Apparently he's playing amazing. Of course, that's the guy that a lot of people really wanted in a later round over someone like Kenneth Murray, Patrick Queen, just because of the value. And of course, he looks really good. And Murray is LB3 on this team. But they're pretty good. If the Ravens were healthy, I think I would give them the edge, especially because they're a been there, done that sort of team. This team knows what to do when the moments count, I think, especially with Harbaugh, but they're just not healthy. And they keep losing players. It just doesn't, I don't know. I just don't think it's amazing that the Chargers team got blown out by them because they're missing quite a bit of talent. I think the Bengals were able to expose some of that. So while I do think the Ravens aren't as bad as that loss looked, I have to give Bengals the edge right now over them. And I thought the Chargers would beat the Bengals kind of no problem this year, especially because I thought the Bengals wouldn't have much of an offensive line. I don't know if they do, but I believe it's better. And obviously their offense, they're scoring like crazy. They were just putting up points at will with starters, with backups against the Ravens, which is really impressive. So, and I was worried because a couple of weeks ago, I picked the Packers to beat the Bengals outright in our pick'em. And I was really nervous watching that game. Of course, the kicks and yada, yada, all that problem, but they did a pretty good job on defense against Aaron Rodgers and company. So, give them credit. They're definitely a better team. They're almost contenders in my opinion, and they've earned the right to be in that category, which is much better than I would have guessed they were.
Yeah, absolutely. So next 5 games for the Bengals, they play the Jets on Sunday, so they'll win that one. Then they play the Browns, Raiders, Steelers, Chargers. So tough 5 games for the Bengals. I think that's going to tell us a lot. And obviously a great time to mention that we are giving away tickets to the Chargers and Bengals game on our Twitter. You'll find that pinned to our profile right now, the details of how to sign that up. Great seats in the 100 section, courtesy of Darren Bunch and Taylor Santiago. So please go check that out. You'll sign up for our Patreon page, comment on the specific post who you would be taking to the game, and we will announce the winner of that giveaway next Monday. So go check that out. If you live on the East Coast, that's a great opportunity to go to a fun game. I think it's a much more competitive game than I was expecting. I know Alex is making a face right now because it happens to be in the state of Ohio.
No. I'm giving you the stank face because you just called Cincinnati the East Coast. That's not the East Coast. That's in Ohio. Ohio is not the East Coast.
I said if you live on the East Coast. I didn't say Ohio was on the East Coast.
I'll give you the con. The con is you have to go to Ohio, and Ohio is a shithole. But you get to watch the 2020 Offensive Rookie of the Year battle against the 2021 Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, I mean, that should be some fireworks.
Yeah, it'll be a super fun game heading into the season. I think we all kind of looked at the Bengals as like a trap game potential for the Chargers. Turns out it's just gonna be a really fun competitive game. So whether you live on the East Coast or Ohio or the Midwest or the West Coast in LA, go check out that giveaway. I think that's a fun opportunity to go plan for a road game, and a great chance to see a good football game. So last one here. Unfortunately, we have to talk about the Raiders beating Alex's Eagles. It was really great to see all those Eagles fans show up. I wish the Eagles team would have shown up with them. But the Raiders have won the last 2 games. They're getting that, interim head coach boost. A lot of people, again, are giving them a lot of hype, and they're 5-2, and they deserve some credit for, bouncing back and winning these last 2 games after that whole mess. But Tyler, your dad's a Raiders fan, so do you expect, and does your dad expect this team to continue winning? And how do you have them in the AFC hierarchy?
Well, my dad, of course, expects them to continue winning. I actually got to go to this sports bar and watch the game with him, and they looked good. They played really well. The Eagles had absolutely no answer for them on defense. Henry Ruggs was doing intermediate and short routes, which is really good to see for his development. Bad for the NFL, who are trying to defend him because they really didn't have to take many deep shots. Waller was out, and they went to Moreau, and he looked great. Jacobs is much healthier. He looked like a healthy player where he wasn't healthy against the Chargers. And I think that is something to consider the next time they match up. And their defense, Ngakoue looks good. What's his name? Max Crosby was jumping over the offensive line to hold the QB sneak or whatever it was from getting into the end zone. They're looking pretty solid. Their 2 defensive edge rushers, really good. Their secondary is playing okay. And all the Chargers players are really stepping up for them. With Brandon Faison even making some tackles at that point. Although, did Perryman go down in that game? I don't recall if he's hurt. I know he leads the NFL in tackles. I thought he got hurt.
He leads the NFL in tackles right now?
I believe at the time of the game, yes. I don't know if he does after this past week, but yes. At the time of the game, he leads the NFL in tackles. Wow. I don't know how many of those were his own teammates, but but yeah, no, I think they're a solid team. Good for them for taking the John Gruden stuff and taking it in stride and winning. I have them as the second best team in the AFC West. Their record will be good enough to probably get them into the postseason. I don't know. I don't really buy them. And even watching, and especially because I watched Derek Carr forwards and literally watched Derek Carr in reverse just to make fun of him when he played the Chargers. He looked really flustered and not very good in that game. The Chargers were able to get to him with blitzes, and he was just not seeing the field. So while I do think, good for them for winning, they're a couple of weeks removed from losing to the Bears, who are atrocious on offense, and the Bears had no problem with the Raiders. So, I think they're a good team. I think they could make the postseason, but I don't really buy them as much as, say, someone like the Bengals.
To be totally honest, I still think they're frauds. I think that they've beaten the Broncos and the Eagles, which is like great, but that's like beating the two stupid kids at the table. I don't know, like what do you want me to do with that? In terms of the Bears, yeah, they lost that game, and I just what do they have over the Bengals and the Ravens? Like they're not better than those teams. They're not better than the Chargers right now. They just lost to them. They're not better than the Bills. So to me, they're the 6th or 7th best team at the AFC at best. And I think that Derek Carr is good. Their offense is very good, and they'll always be a problem for teams. But to me, I'm not giving Rich Bisaccia credit because he beat the Eagles and the Broncos. Like, whoop de fucking do. That's what you're supposed to do when you have Derek Carr as your quarterback in a pretty loaded offense. Now, the next stretch in their schedule will sort of be where the rubber hits the road. You have the Chiefs, you have the Bengals, you have the Cowboys. I think then there's the Chiefs again and the Browns. So that stretch will kind of tell us whether they're for real or not. But to be totally honest, I just still don't really buy them. I think a lot of their flaws were shown in the Chargers and Bears games. To me, I just have a hard time believing they're going to really pull it all together during that final stretch and not collapse like pretty much every Raiders team has in the last 3 or 4 years. Right. Well, I was going to say I'd like to be proven wrong, but I wouldn't like to be proven wrong because fuck the Raiders, frankly. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But to me, I was sort of impressed with how their defense played a little bit yesterday. But to be honest, I don't see how beating the Eagles is like an accomplishment. Like you should be able to do that. Yeah, I guess we'll see what the Raiders are going forward. But right now, I don't buy them.
Yeah, they're the opposite end of the spectrum of the Chiefs, right? Where I expect the Chiefs to figure it out until proven otherwise. I expect the Raiders to be frauds until proven otherwise. We've seen them do this before. I think last year at this time they were 6-3 or something like that. So, they play the Giants coming out of the bye, which they have this week. After that, the schedule that Alex mentioned is difficult for them. And we'll find out. We'll find out a lot about a lot of these teams, right? So I think there is a lot of, there's a lot of clarity that we need in this pecking order. And of course, that the AFC has never been this wide open in my life, I think. When was the last time that we can remember there being legitimately 6 or 7 teams that could win this conference? Usually there's 1 or 2, depending on the Patriots year, the Chiefs years, or the Broncos years. So obviously we have to talk about where the Chargers fit into all of this. Alex, what do you think? Where do you see the Chargers, stacking up at this point?
I think a lot of it will obviously depend on how they look once they get their guys back. But I expect them to look pretty good. Personally, if you made me rank them right now, I would have the Chargers. I think I'd have them 3rd or 4th in the AFC, in that group of teams that is the Bills, the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs. The Bills, the Bengals, and the Ravens. I think they're sort of behind there or equal to some of those teams. But I kind of have them as the 4th best team. Obviously, the Titans are in there. And while I don't think the Titans are a better team than the Chargers, the Titans are the team that's most equipped to give the Chargers the problems in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because they have Derrick Henry, and he'll average, 500 yards per carry against the Chargers that they ever play. So that would be concerning. So, I have the middle of the pack when we talk about those 7, 8 AFC contenders for now. I think I would put the Chargers probably 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, that's about fair. I think that they're a better team than the Titans, yet I think the Titans could beat them. Kind of like we're talking about Derrick Henry. That's a tough matchup. I think looking at the rest of their schedule, thankfully this is the easy part. I wouldn't be surprised if they went 8-3. I think there's 2, not definite losses, but 2 losses I think in there, plus 1 because it's the NFL and they're going to lose one of those games. 8-3 the rest of the way isn't bad by any means. And that's a really good finish to the season for them. So I think I have them definitely as the division winner. I think at this point they are the best in the division. And I think, the 4th seed sounds about right.
The 4th seed and a matchup with the Las Vegas Raiders. Yay. Super fun.
I'll take it. That's a great path.
I'll take it over the Titans because the Titans have Derrick Henry, who's not fraudulent.
No, it's amazing to like sit here and talk about this, right? Because like I said, like there's always been, the Patriots over everybody and
Hmm.
the Broncos when they had Peyton and the Chiefs with Mahomes. And so, everybody is right in that tier. I think the Bills are gonna be the 1 seed. I think they have the best overall roster in the
Hmm.
AFC. But outside of that, I think it really is up for grabs. And I think I would agree with you. Probably third or fourth. I think to me, even though the Ravens got destroyed against the Bengals on Sunday, I still think that they're the second best team in the conference. They're a little bit game script dependent, of course.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened yesterday. Is the Bengals kind of got out to that early lead in the second half, and then
Hmm.
then you can't blitz as effectively, you can't run the ball as effectively. So them and the Titans are a little bit game script dependent, right? But I think those two teams, I think with the Chargers would be second, third, and fourth. And then you can talk about the Bengals and Raiders and the rest of that crew. So I think we're all on the same page there. So before we head out for today, we'll take a few minutes of questions. So if you have any questions, now is the time. The super chat feature is enabled. Alex, do you want to talk to our listeners right now about ExpressVPN?
Yes, I would like to talk to our viewers at home about ExpressVPN. So you can watch all 22 with ExpressVPN. In America, it's broken, and you want to use that ExpressVPN to get that international Game Pass. You can also watch live games. You can watch every single catch from every single angle on Coach's film of Jamar Chase just repeatedly making Steven eat shit for an entire 60 minutes. It's just excellent to watch on all 22. So you can go to expressvpn.com/guilty to get a 3-month free trial of ExpressVPN. You got nothing to lose. Just, you can use it for Netflix and all of that stuff too, because there's some stuff on the United States that, isn't on Netflix overseas and yada yada. So, you can go to expressvpn.com/guilty to watch the Eagles get the tank. So yeah, we are getting the full tank commander right now. So yeah, go to expressvpn.com/guilty to get that beautiful all 22 footage.
Well done. Well done. For the record, I always said if you're going to take a receiver in the top 5, he better be a damn good receiver, and Jamar Chase is that. So the Bengals definitely took the right one there. The Dolphins, on the other hand, that's a different story. All right. First question from Edwin Martinez. Should we sign Geno Atkins? Geno, of course, one of the more dominant defensive tackles of our life. I haven't even seen him get like a workout or a tryout.
Hmm.
So I don't even know if he's like still trying to play football or not. Him
Right.
and Larry Warford, the old Saints offensive lineman, have kind of just like disappeared into nothing.
Hmm.
So if Geno is interested in coming for a tryout, I think at least that would be worth it. But I don't know if he's even still trying to play football or not.
Yeah, at this point, it was cool before the season started, but considering there's been no buzz, I think at this point he's out.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, like it can't get much worse, but he did deal with some injuries last year. So I mean, that part of it, he's older, and last year I think was his like worst career graded year. So he was, it was a 44.7 against the run on PFF, which is by far his worst season. So I feel like that, in addition to his injuries, in addition to his age, probably reasons to stay away, but I wouldn't be against like an end of the roster spot being used on him, because again, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, I haven't even looked at like what other defensive tackles are out there, but I mean, if Geno is interested, then sure. Another question about Dustin Hopkins. So that's a good point to talk about what Brandon Staley said today about Tristan Vizcaino. Apparently, they are keeping their options open, but they still have confidence in Tristan. So I know a lot of people yesterday were talking about Michael Badgley and the kicking situation. That's how frustrating it is. A lot of people want Michael Badgley back on this team. So, Tyler, what do you make of the potentially signing Dustin Hopkins from the formerly of the Washington football team?
Okay. Am I for it? Sort of. Do I think the team will be for it? Currently, no. But I do think that Staley's comment was definitely interesting. Like, yep, we are confident in him for now, but you shank a couple more extra points, and we're going to keep our options open because it's unacceptable. So, unfortunately, again, Vizcaino he's only missed one field goal, so it's not like he's costing them there. I don't know. I'm gonna ride with him. I think the rest of the way, unless it gets really bad, only because he's only missed one field goal, and so it's not like when I see more of those misses, I guess then I'd cut him. It's very frustrating to see the extra points being missed. I want to say that's an easy fix. It should be an easy fix because it's extra points. Maybe it's just some bad luck, some bad mechanics, blocking, whatever, and hopefully that gets fixed in the bye week. So I'm gonna stick with him for now, especially because we've watched the team give up on certain Asian kickers, and that didn't work out. So I'll give him some confidence as well, and some patience, and I'll ride with Vizcaino as frustrating as it might be in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Is
no.
he Asian?
But is he Asian? Yeah, I wasn't
No,
sure.
Young
I thought he
Hui-Koo.
was.
Well, Young Wei-Koo is Asian. Is Vizcaino Asian?
No, I didn't. No. I'm just saying, like, they've given up on
Oh,
the
okay.
Asian kicker before,
Yeah.
not like another Asian kicker. Like,
Okay.
not that
Okay.
Vizcaino's
Yeah.
Asian kicker.
Yeah,
I know
I mean,
my
in fairness to Young Wei-Koo, he wasn't missing extra points by 10 yards. So I don't know if that was like really the problem. I am confident in Vizcaino finding happiness in his next line of employment. Because that's where I'm at with Tristan Vizcaino. Look, try it for another few weeks if you really can, but this is exactly what the Chargers have been playing with for the last few years. Like, yeah, he's not missing field goals, but they also don't trust him to take field goals. Like, very clearly, going for it like on every fourth down is part of that, in addition to Staley's analytical view on things. So, like, sure, he's only missed one, but he's also missed, he's on pace for whatever, like 16 missed extra points. Like, it's really bad. So I don't know. I get waiting with him because, he does have a big leg and it's there. But to me, like, if Dustin Hopkins is out there, and it would be different if there wasn't a veteran kicking option, but he's 12 of 14 on field goals this year, or I think 12 of 14 on not field goals, but extra points. So it's just like, I mean, try it. Like, to me, you got to look for upgrades in every way that you can. And I feel like it's like, well, we're going to be patient with Vizcaino, but we're not going to be patient with KJ Hill. Like, what's the double standard there? Like, to me, I think that the coaching staff has to look into upgrades at every area of special teams, not just like one, because KJ Hill was the scapegoat and he stunk, but like there's other parts of it that stink too. So to me, you have to look into Dustin Hopkins if it presents itself as an option, which it has. I don't think they're going to do it. Like Tyler said, I think they're confident in Vizcaino, but at some point it's going to cost them a game.
Yeah, I think they're going to be confident and trust Vizcaino as long as they possibly can. I think it's going to take like a game-winning missed kick or something like that to move off of him. If he hits a game-winning field goal against the Patriots, that'll be awesome. Like that, we'll be the first ones there to congratulate him. But it's tough to see. Like, I know a lot of people were talking about Michael Badgley yesterday, but it's like Michael Badgley wasn't exactly crushing it in the preseason either. Like, Michael Badgley had his chances to win this job and he didn't. So we'll see. Like, I feel like the extra point thing should be an easy fix. Alex kind of pointed out like the prolonged head down kind of thing that he does. I don't know if that's contributing to that. I don't know enough about kicking, but you shouldn't be missing PATs this bad. So I hope it's an easy fix. I hope that they're able to help Tristan reach his potential, because if he is able to reach that potential, then the Chargers will finally be able to have a good kicker. So wow, good morning from England. What's up, Ben? That's super cool.
Isn't it like 3 a.m. over there? It's a 6-hour difference. So I mean, good morning. I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. too because I'm a fucking psychopath. But good morning to you, Ben.
But yeah, obviously hope Tristan figures it out. Josh Lambo is a free agent as well. We can kind of talk about that for a different time. I know Alex has some thoughts about that, but it is what it is. Daniel asked a couple questions. Excuse me, or a couple of different times. Is this the year that Tom Telesco finally makes a trade for someone mid-season? We did talk quite a bit about trades earlier. I think if Justin Jones plays this week and the run defense is not any better, then I think we see Tom Telesco make a trade and Brandon Staley by effect. But if Justin Jones comes back, he looks great. Run defense is much improved. Then I think they will continue to roll with the same group of defensive linemen.
I do not think they're going to make a trade. I think they addressed their need that they thought they could address with Roberts. They did that days ago. I think if they were going to make a change, that was kind of it. Even though they want to see what Jones can do, I think they know what Jones can do. And again, hopefully they don't fall into the trap of, oh, look, we got better because we played shit teams and now our run defense is better. I really hope that's not the trap.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to roll with the guys they have based on Staley's comments. I don't think they're making a trade for anyone. If they make a trade for anyone, I don't think it's the defensive line. It really sounds like that's just kind of settled as is. They have the guys that they want to work with, and they think that they can coach him better, whatever that means, whatever they were doing in the entire offseason. Not sure what they were defining things as that this team all of a sudden, each guy couldn't figure it out because these are all good coaches. So I think they stick with what they got. Fortunately, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really see them making a trade. I wouldn't predict one off the top of my head, but it could happen. I don't think it's going to be for like a massive impact guy like a lot of people think it might be. It could just be for like, hey, we want to boost the special teams, so let's go get this guy or something like that, which would also be good. I mean, I don't think that you need to necessarily go get a difference maker right now. But I would like to go see them, go get a defensive tackle, go get, whatever you can to sort of just fortify depth at some of the spots. Linebacker wouldn't be terrible either. But yeah, I don't think right now that they're going to do much, but I don't think it's the end of the world if they don't either.
Yo, Brady's going to give the guy that gave up the ball, he's going to give him a Bitcoin.
Like a share in Bitcoin?
Like, I think the full 65,000, wherever it's at right now.
Oh, wow. That's generous of him.
Wow. I know a lot of people were like giving that guy shit, but he got a haul for that football, man. Like, he got a lot of stuff for that thing. So, I mean, good for him. Apparently, he requested to play a round of golf with Tom Brady. So, I mean, that would be rather interesting. But
what a waste.
I hate how much more likable Brady has become in Tampa than he was in New England.
I'm still suspicious of him. You know what? This is all his social media team making him more likable. He's still that Tom Brady, so he can't fool me. Maybe we want to wrap it up on this one from Adrian because I know we were talking about doing record predictions. So what are your current end of season record predictions considering the 11 games that the Chargers have left?
So I'll go first on this one. I expect them to be in the playoffs. I think that they are should rightfully be considered the favorite for the AFC West. I think at this point, 12-5, 13-4 is where I end up as like a best case scenario. I predicted like 11-6 before the season. So right now I'm saying 12-5, best case scenario, 13-4.
All right, before the season, I had them at 11-6. I think they've earned a little bit better than that. I'm going to go 12-5 to finish the year. I'm at a loss right now against the Bengals, especially because they're going to Cincinnati. Although we'll see how Cincinnati changes, if at all, over the next couple of weeks. But based on how they played, I think they'll lose at Cincinnati. And then I'm giving them a loss to the Minnesota Vikings, which I hate, but I think they can pull it off. Fortunately, the Chargers do play at home. That just feels like a weird game they might lose. And then it's some other toss-up for that third loss. It could be New England, and that wouldn't surprise me. Of course, they have to play Kansas City again. At Denver is still a problem, and then against the Raiders. So, I definitely think they're a double-digit win team. That's pretty certain at this point. I do think they're winning the AFC West. I do think they're making the postseason. So I'll have them at 12-5, which is pretty solid.
Yeah, I think 12-5 or 11-6 is fair. Just based on the schedule that they have left. I haven't really gone through and predicted every game, but the Bengals game is going to be hard now. I do ultimately think they end up splitting with the Chiefs, and I could maybe see them losing to the Broncos at Mile High or something like that, just because that game is always weird. But yeah, so I think 12-5 or 11-6 is pretty on point, and that means they go 8-3, 7-4 to finish the season, which I think with the schedule they have left, 8-3 is pretty doable at this point, and I think that should be the goal if there is one.
Yeah, I think they will lose at least one more or one division game. Like I don't think that they're going to go 6-0, whether that's losing to, losing in Mile High or losing to the Chiefs. I think they'll lose one. And then the other games are kind of up for grabs, but 12-5, like I think that's awesome. So that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, make sure and like the video, comment on it, subscribe to our channel, leave us a rating or review if you're listening to the audio version. Cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in. I know it was the bye week, and I know Monday Night Football is going on, so can't thank you enough for all of your support. And we will be diving into the Patriots game more in depth once the week goes on. And as always, see you next time.